Today's case is taking us to the heart of Leicester, England, on a seemingly festive Christmas Eve in 2014. What began as a hopeful and joyous time for 34-year-old Sameena Imam quickly unraveled into a chilling and calculated crime that shocked the nation. Welcome back to Chilling Fireside Stories, where I bring you real-life cases that deserve to be remembered with the utmost care and respect and make them bearable for my community. If you haven't already, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Your support helps me continue bringing awareness to these important stories and ensuring that the victims are never forgotten. Now, settle in and let's begin. In the heart of England's Midlands lies the bustling city of Coventry, where 34-year-old Sameena Imam had built a life of quiet accomplishment. Known for her intelligence and warmth, she was the kind of person everyone turned to for advice and support. She lived an ordinary life filled with friendships, weekend outings, and a fulfilling career as a senior marketing manager at Costco. But beneath the surface of her seemingly content life lay a well-guarded secret. For 2 years, Sameena had been involved in a secret affair with Roger Cooper, a 41-year-old regional manager at Costco. Roger's relationship with Sameena was riddled with complexities, the most significant being his ongoing commitment to his longtime partner, Susan, with whom he had shared over a decade of his life. Despite the stability and history of his relationship with Susan, Roger led a secret double life, dividing his time and affections between her and Sameena. Adding to the complexity, workplace policies strictly prohibited relationships between managerial staff and employees, creating yet another layer of secrecy. If their affair were discovered, both Sameena and Roger risked losing their careers. They went to great lengths to conceal their relationship, meeting far from town or spending time in private at Sameena's home. The constant need for discretion placed an emotional strain on her, but she clung to Roger's promises of a brighter future together. However, Roger harbored another betrayal. While he strung Sameena along with promises of leaving Susan, he was simultaneously involved in a third relationship, this time with another colleague from Costco. This woman, who worked directly under Roger, was unknowingly part of his tangled web of deceit. The power dynamics of this relationship added another layer of manipulation and control to Roger's already dubious character. He juggled these 3 relationships with apparent ease, treating the women in his life as though they were interchangeable pieces in a self-serving game. By late 2014, Sameena had grown weary of Roger's broken promises. Time and again, he assured her that he would leave Susan and commit to her, but his words never translated into action. Watching Roger return to Susan's home each night while continuing their secret affair became unbearable. Determined to move forward, Sameena confronted Roger with an ultimatum: leave Susan by the end of the year or lose her forever. Unbeknownst to Sameena, her ultimatum would set off a chain of events that would lead to an unimaginable betrayal. Faced with this deadline, Roger assured her that he was working on a plan to leave Susan and promised that by Christmas, everything would be resolved. He painted a picture of a fresh start in the new year, a life where they could finally be together without hiding. For Sameena, this was the moment she had been waiting for. Overwhelmed with excitement, Sameena booked a romantic getaway for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day at the luxurious Malmaison Hotel in Birmingham. She envisioned a magical holiday where they could celebrate their new beginning as a couple, free from the shadows of secrecy. But while Sameena was planning their future, Roger was plotting something far darker. In truth, he had no intention of leaving Susan. He had been lying to Sameena all along, feeding her false promises to keep her content while maintaining his double life. Now, with Sameena's ultimatum looming, Roger felt trapped. He feared that if he didn't leave Susan, Sameena might expose their affair, jeopardizing his relationship and his carefully constructed facade. The pressure of the situation pushed Roger to a chilling conclusion. The only way to protect his lifestyle was to eliminate Sameena entirely. Roger confided in his younger brother, David Cooper, about the predicament he had created. David, a former military man, shared Roger's twisted perspective and agreed that murder was the only solution. Together, they began to plan the unthinkable. For Roger, Sameena was no longer a person, she was a problem to be solved. Their sinister plotting began in the weeks leading up to Christmas. Roger and David decided the Costco employee Christmas party on December 12th would provide the perfect opportunity to strike. With alcohol flowing and late-night darkness offering cover, they imagined a scenario where anything could happen. They prepared meticulously. Roger lured Samina with a series of text messages, inviting her to meet him at a premier-inn hotel under the guise of a romantic surprise. Believing him, Samina arrived at the hotel and waited in the lobby, only to find herself ghosted. Roger stopped responding to her texts, leaving her confused and hurt. Meanwhile, David lay in wait in the hotel car park, hidden in his vehicle. Their plan was horrifyingly simple. As Samina left the hotel, David would jump out, abduct her, and drive her away to kill her. But fate intervened. Samina's taxi had dropped her off directly at the front entrance, mere steps from the door. The brightly lit area, bustling with people, left no room for David to execute his plan unnoticed. Frustrated, he abandoned the attempt, and Samina returned home unaware of the danger she had narrowly escaped. To avoid suspicion, Roger continued his relationship with Samina as if nothing had happened, even though he had fully intended for her to die that night. The brothers communicated throughout the failed operation using coded language inspired by their love of Star Wars, referring to each other as Vader and issuing cryptic messages like Death Star Complete. Their use of nerdy lingo against the backdrop of such a gruesome scheme painted a disturbing picture of their cold detachment. Despite the failure of their first attempt, Roger remained resolute. Samina's Christmas ultimatum drew closer, and Roger grew desperate to find a way to ensure she wouldn't survive beyond her deadline. With Christmas Eve fast approaching, Roger saw an opportunity to try again. The couple planned to spend the evening together at a hotel, away from prying eyes. For Roger, it was the perfect setup. Samina would be completely alone, and he could carry out his deadly plan without interference. In his mind, all he had to do was ensure that she didn't survive the night, and then he could return to Susan as though nothing had ever happened. On Christmas Eve 2014, Sameena Imam and Roger Cooper left their final shift at Costco with a sense of normalcy, or so it seemed to Samina. At 4 p.m., they got into their respective cars and drove away, maintaining their usual charade of discretion. While they headed in different directions at first, they met at a nearby Marks and Spencer store shortly after. It was a chance encounter they staged carefully, always vigilant about who might be watching. Samina purchased a bottle of Bellini and a box of chocolate, excited for the romantic weekend they had planned. After this brief meetup, Roger and Samina returned to their respective homes to gather their belongings for the holiday getaway. Later, Roger picked Samina up in his Audi, and they set off for Birmingham. The holiday plans symbolized so much to Samina: a fresh start, the fulfillment of Roger's promises, and the hope of building a life together. Little did she know, her excitement would soon turn into betrayal. As they drove, Roger told Samina they needed to make a quick stop at his brother David's house in Leicester to drop off Christmas gifts. For Samina, this was a heartwarming moment. Meeting David felt like a significant step forward in their relationship. The journey to David's house was punctuated by a phone call from Samina's sister, where they excitedly chatted about the family's Boxing Day plans, a beloved tradition of food, drinks, and cherished time together. Samina confirmed her attendance, looking forward to spending time with her loved ones. Tragically, this would be the last time her family ever heard from her. At around 5 p.m., Roger's car pulled into David's driveway. The couple stepped out of the car and walked up the driveway. As they crossed the threshold into David's home, the tone shifted dramatically. Without warning, the Cooper brothers pounced. Samina, petite at just 5 feet 2 inches, was no match for the towering men, Roger, standing at 6 feet 5 inches, and David, at an imposing 6 feet 7 inches. Overpowered and pinned down, Samina's trust in Roger, the man she believed loved her, was shattered in an instant. While Roger restrained her, David prepared for what came next. In the days leading up to Christmas, David had purchased chloroform online, a decision that underscored the premeditated nature of their plan. With the chemical in hand, David poured it onto a tea towel and returned to the living room. There, Samina had been moved to the sofa, held down by the man she thought she knew. In that chilling moment, her trust, hope, and dreams were replaced by betrayal and cruelty. The fear and betrayal Samina must have felt in those moments are unimaginable. The exact cause of Samina's death remains unclear. Toxicology reports later revealed an unusual mix of metallic elements in her bloodstream. Whether these substances were administered intentionally or were contaminants in the chloroform remains a mystery. What is certain is that by 6:25 p.m., less than 90 minutes after arriving at David's house, Sameena Imam was dead. Roger wasted no time distancing himself from the crime. Leaving Samina's body in David's care, he drove back to Coventry to spend Christmas with his unsuspecting girlfriend Susan. Before leaving, Roger took Samina's phone, intending to use it to fabricate an alibi. In a clumsy attempt to cover his tracks, he sent himself a text from Samina's phone, stating, "I'm going to where I'm truly cared for." The message was meant to suggest that Samina had left of her own accord, but it was a feeble and transparent effort to divert suspicion. However, this poorly thought-out plan only served to implicate Roger further. By sending the text, he directly linked himself to Samina on the day of her disappearance. The following morning, Christmas Day, Roger sent another text from his own phone to Samina's, wishing her a Merry Christmas. This was a feeble attempt to create the illusion that he believed she was still alive. Meanwhile, David Cooper was busy disposing of Samina's body and any evidence that could tie them to the crime. In a chilling display of detachment, David wrapped Samina's body in layers of cling film, commonly known as plastic wrap, and placed it inside an old army sleeping bag. He then prepared to transport her remains to a location where they could be hidden. David's next move took him to an allotment he owned, a small plot of land often used for gardening or growing vegetables. This seemingly innocuous property would become the final resting place for Samina's body. The brothers' actions were calculated in some respects, but their lack of foresight and sloppy attempts at deception would soon unravel their sinister plot. By 7:45 p.m., David was back home, ready to host his girlfriend for a festive Christmas Eve evening, as though nothing had happened. Roger, too, returned to his own home to spend Christmas with Susan, embracing holiday cheer while Samina lay buried and forgotten. Meanwhile, they realized they still had another issue to address, Samina's car. To deflect attention from themselves, they decided to make it appear as though Samina had left of her own accord. Retrieving her vehicle, they drove it 65 miles away to Luton and abandoned it on a quiet residential street. Before leaving, they wiped the car meticulously, removing any fingerprints or evidence that could tie them to it. They hoped it would blend in among the other vehicles, going unnoticed. On Boxing Day, December 26th, when Samina failed to show up for her family's traditional celebrations, her loved ones immediately knew something was wrong. Samina was not the kind of person to miss family plans, especially without communicating. She was close-knit with her family, and her absence was entirely out of character. They called and texted her repeatedly, but received no response. Growing more concerned, they visited her home, only to find it empty. With no other options, the family reported Samina missing to the police. At first, the authorities were hesitant to act. As a grown woman, Samina had the right to come and go as she pleased, and cases of adults disappearing temporarily often resolve themselves. Police urged the family to wait a day or two in case she returned. However, Samina's family knew better. She was responsible and reliable. Vanishing without a word, especially during the holidays, was entirely unlike her. Frustrated but determined, they pressed the police to take her disappearance seriously. Days passed, and Samina remained missing. She didn't return home, she didn't show up for her shifts at Costco, and there was no sign of her anywhere. Finally, the police began to treat her disappearance as a serious matter. Investigators visited her apartment, searching for any signs of foul play. The home was orderly, with no signs of a struggle or evidence of any sudden departure. However, one detail stood out: Samina's car was missing. This clue would soon lead detectives deeper into the mystery of her disappearance. Sameena Imam's disappearance quickly became a national concern as her family launched a tireless campaign to find her. They turned to every available platform, from news outlets to Crime Watch, a UK program that recreated active crime cases and appealed directly to the public for information. Crime Watch had a track record of success in helping resolve cases. On January 4, 2015, 11 days after Samina's murder, a significant breakthrough came when a member of the public reported an abandoned BMW on a quiet street in Luton. Many locals had noticed the car but paid little attention to it until they saw the license plate matched the one broadcast on Crime Watch. When police arrived, their suspicions were confirmed. The car belonged to Samina. A forensic examination of the car revealed disturbing details. The interior was empty, no personal belongings, no handbag, no phone, and no trace of Samina herself. Even more unsettling was the absence of fingerprints. The steering wheel, gear stick, and door handles had been meticulously wiped clean. The police immediately recognized this as an intentional effort to erase evidence. One detail stood out, however. The driver's seat had been pushed back far from the steering wheel, a position that would have been impossible for Samina to drive from given her petite 5 feet 2 inches frame. This discovery strongly suggested that someone else, likely a much taller person, had driven the car before abandoning it. Determined to uncover the truth, investigators shifted their focus to tracing Samina's movements on Christmas Eve. They knew she had finished her shift at Costco that afternoon, but she never made it to the hotel she had booked for the holiday. The timeline was fragmented, and the police needed to fill in the gaps to understand what had happened during those crucial hours. Turning to Samina's mobile network provider, police sought her phone data, including the location of cell towers she had connected to and any text messages sent or received. Their investigation led them to an intriguing clue, a message sent from Samina's phone to Roger on Christmas Eve. The message stated that she was fuming and was going to where she is truly cared for. This cryptic text marked a pivotal moment in the investigation, raising questions about its authenticity and Roger's involvement. The investigators identified Roger as a key figure in the case. Initially, they only knew him as Samina's co-worker at Costco, but the emotional tone of the message hinted at a deeper, more personal connection. Roger was brought in for questioning, and his initial story was straightforward. He claimed he hadn't seen or heard from Samina since they both left work at 4 p.m. on Christmas Eve. However, the police weren't convinced. They confronted him with evidence that Samina had been scheduled to check into a hotel that night, a plan she never followed through on, and reminded him of the text she had sent to his phone. Faced with this information, Roger's story quickly unraveled.
Start with the day that you saw it, last day you saw it.
It was around 4 p.m, but I haven't got that specific time, so it's around 4 p.m.
Yeah.
I was in my office, in the work. I was with there were 4 of us in the room, so there's 2 other people apart from her. One of them is another regional manager, which is what she has been doing.
Yeah.
And the other one works for me in the store.
Yeah.
And I was leaving, so I gave the regional manager a hug because it's Christmas.
Yeah.
And wished her Happy Christmas. And Sam says, "Where's mine then?" So I went over there and gave her a hug. And so I'll talk to you later. And then I left.
Okay. And that was at 4 p.m?
Roughly
around 4 p.m.
Yeah.
On the, which day was
Christmas
that?
Eve.
Christmas Eve. So it was on the 24th of December. And left the site, yeah?
And left the car park. And within 5 minutes, I'm sure it's within 5 minutes, she phoned.
Okay, she's phoned you. What did you say?
She's saying that, "So I'll see you tonight then." Like, no, I'm not going to be there. She's just trying to persuade me one more time.
What happened then?
It was a 2-minute conversation, if that. It was a brief one, and then it was like...
How did it leave it? How did she sound?
A little disappointed, but I think she still thought I was going to go. So not as angry or as irked as she probably should have.
You said the call lasted about 2 minutes.
If that.
And was that the last time you heard from her?
No, I got a text message last time I heard her voice.
Last one. What? Tell me about the text message yet?
This is a couple of hours later, nearer 7 o'clock. I can read it. Do you want me to?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm fuming, full stop. I'm going to where I am truly cared for.
What do you think she meant by that text message?
I assumed she'd gone to Birmingham. See one of her friends. It was an assumption. I've got no basis for that at all, because I knew that she would want to eventually be in London to see her family because of her mum.
Right. So, the next thing that you know about Sam then is what?
Boxing Day.
Boxing Day.
Boxing Day. Boxing Day evening. Boxing Day evening.
Admitting to the affair for the first time, Roger confessed that he was the mystery man Samina had planned to spend Christmas with. He claimed, however, that their romantic getaway never happened because they had a massive argument on the way to the hotel. According to Roger, Samina had demanded he pull over, and she stormed out of the car with her belongings. He insisted that he hadn't seen or heard from her since, aside from the angry text she sent later that evening. Roger explained that he didn't respond to the message because he wanted to let things cool off, hoping they could reconcile the next day. He even claimed that his Christmas morning text wishing her a Merry Christmas was an attempt to re-establish contact. The police were far from convinced. Roger's story had already changed dramatically within the span of a single interview. The inconsistencies in his account, coupled with his admission of the affair, painted a picture of someone desperately trying to cover his tracks. His claim that he had dropped Samina off in a car park after an argument was riddled with holes, and investigators couldn't ignore the glaring red flags. Roger's emotional display during the interview, breaking down in tears as he read the last text supposedly sent by Samina, did little to sway the police. The investigation into Sameena Imam's disappearance reached a critical turning point when police analyzed her phone data. They discovered that Samina's phone had traveled from Coventry to Leicester and back on Christmas Eve, a route that raised immediate questions. Samina had no known connections in Leicester, and her friends and family confirmed she had no reason to visit the city. This revelation deepened the mystery surrounding her movements that day. The breakthrough came when investigators examined Roger Cooper's phone records. His phone had followed the exact same route as Samina's on Christmas Eve, confirming that the two had been together for hours. This evidence directly contradicted Roger's earlier claim that he had dropped Samina off after an argument. The phone data proved that Roger's story was a fabrication, further implicating him in her disappearance. With Roger's lies piling up, police shifted their focus to his connection to Leicester. They soon uncovered a chilling detail. Roger's brother, David Cooper, lived in Leicester and owned an allotment, a small plot of land just minutes from his home. The discovery of this unused property set off alarm bells for investigators. Given the circumstances, the allotment seemed like a potential location to search for Samina. Obtaining a search warrant, police assembled a team of experts including forensic specialists, sniffer dogs, and excavation crews. Their efforts paid off. After extensive digging, they unearthed an army sleeping bag containing Samina's body wrapped in plastic film. The discovery confirmed the family's worst fears and marked a turning point in the case. On January 7, 2015, both Roger and David Cooper were arrested on suspicion of Samina's murder. Searches of their homes followed, yielding further evidence. While Roger's home revealed little, aside from the absence of Samina's phone which he had likely discarded, David's house painted a different picture. Investigators found the bottle of Bellini and the same box of chocolate Samina had purchased on Christmas Eve, stored in David's fridge. The presence of her belongings confirmed that Samina had been at the property, further tying the brothers to the crime. One detail stood out during the search of David's home, a sign on his garden shed that read, "Don't wind me up, I'm running out of places to hide the bodies." The macabre humor of the sign added a chilling layer to the case, reflecting the cold detachment of the brothers. David Cooper's initial interview with the police was a web of contradictions and implausible claims.
It's in connection with a missing person inquiry. Okay. A lady by the name of Sameena Imam. Do you know her?
I've seen the photo you've got.
Yeah.
I didn't know the name.
Was that the photo I've got down there?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a picture of the lady that's missing that we're making inquiries about.
Okay, right.
Have you ever met her?
Familiar. I've met twice someone who looked like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you know her by that name?
No idea ever knew her name.
No. Did you know her by any name?
No.
No. And can you tell me what you know about her?
She works with my brother.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Is that the best way to say that?
Oh, they were in a relationship.
No, I wouldn't go that far. So,
Why would you not get that far?
because he was having a relationship with this girl.
Oh, so yeah.
So,
Am I right in thinking that you met her on 2 occasions?
yeah.
When was the first one?
I don't know which came first. I've seen her in the warehouse working.
Which one?
Costco's Coventry when I went to see my brother once.
Yeah.
And she was there.
Yeah. Did you talk to her?
No. What they were doing wasn't on the radar.
Yeah.
So, and then
Oh, and you were aware of that at the time?
I would have been. So that must be the second time. So she's been. He took her for a meal in a restaurant before.
Yeah. Were you aware that he was seeing her before he came to the restaurant?
No.
So that was that the first time then you'd ever seen or heard anything about her?
He might have mentioned.
He then began by painting a picture of an ordinary Christmas Eve, claiming he had been home alone when, sometime between 5 p.m. and 6:30 p.m., there was a knock at his door. The vague timeline immediately raised eyebrows, but his story only grew more bizarre. David explained that he hesitated to answer the door because, in his words, he didn't like people. Eventually, he opened it, expecting to see his brother Roger, who had recently left. Instead, he claimed to find Sameena Imam standing there alone. According to David, he recognized her as Roger's co-worker and someone his brother had been casually seeing, though he insisted it wasn't a serious relationship. He claimed Samina didn't know Roger's address, but he didn't explain how did she know to come to David's house, an hour away in Leicester. He claimed she was angry and insistent, saying they had made plans and she needed to find him. David alleged that he tried to calm Samina down, offering to call Roger to locate him. However, he said her frustration only grew and she began raising her voice. He described feeling uneasy, worried that his paper-thin walls would allow the neighbors to overhear the commotion. He then continued.
She was saying, but she was like, we've made plans, he's supposed to be seeing me, things like this, which I'm just going to be vague about. Now, I collect lots of different odds and pieces. In my house you'll find lots of things, and they found lots of things, and none of it makes sense to lots of people, but to me it's interesting. And so in my kitchen I've got an ammo box, a military ammo tin, which I think is normal, and in that I had a pot of chloroform. And because I'd seen it on telly and I thought it was okay, I thought I'll just shut her up, because my walls are paper thin, I don't want a scene, and I want to give Roger a few minutes. She wasn't accepting a cup of tea, she wasn't accepting anything else, so I literally thought it was a really good idea. So I've got a bucket which is still in my kitchen and they can still investigate this. I got the chlorophyll, I poured it over a tea towel, and my kitchen is like 2 steps beneath floor level of the lounge, and my sofa is right next to the doorway, and I just went in and put it across her face thinking that it would come out. And as stupid and naive as it sounds, I did think that it would just buy me some time, because I don't know how long they stay unconscious for. And I kind of put it on her face, sat on her lap, and her arms went up and I grabbed her arms and I forced them down, and I was like, just a couple of breaths. And then, maybe I'll ring Roger and tell him, maybe, but I don't know. I just didn't wake up. So then everything just goes 100 miles an hour.
He reasoned that since no one knew Samina was at his house, he could conceal her death and avoid suspicion. David's story raised more questions than it answered. His insistence that the murder was accidental clashed with the premeditated nature of his actions, including the purchase of chloroform and the coordinated efforts with Roger. His claim that a friend named Ben had helped bury Samina's body was another glaring inconsistency. Police found no evidence of this mysterious accomplice, and it became clear that David was attempting to shift blame and minimize his role in the crime. As investigators pieced together the evidence, it became increasingly apparent that both David and Roger were deeply involved in the planning and execution of Samina's murder. Their conflicting stories, combined with the physical evidence, painted a damning picture of their guilt. The August 2015 trial of Roger and David Cooper marked the conclusion of a months-long investigation into the calculated murder of Sameena Imam. Both brothers initially pleaded not guilty, but as the trial progressed, David admitted to burying Samina's body on his allotment using his army sleeping bag, abandoning his fabricated story about a mysterious accomplice. The jury convicted both men, sentencing them to a minimum of 30 years in prison. The lead investigator described the murder as one of the most calculated and callous crimes she had ever encountered. The brothers meticulously planned every step, from the murder to the disposal of Samina's body, demonstrating a chilling disregard for her life. Samina's death was a profound betrayal. Roger, while promising her a future filled with love and happiness, had secretly been plotting her murder. Samina trusted him completely, never suspecting that the man she loved was preparing to end her life. Her tragic story underscores the devastating ways trust can be manipulated and exploited. Thank you for watching this tragic yet compelling case. What are your thoughts on this case? Do you think justice was truly served? Let me know in the comments. As always, until my next video, stay safe and look after your loved ones.